Andrea, please, could you play the video?
Welcome to this webinar. As an attendee, you have access to some features. Here is a list of them. First, let's check the audio settings. You can access them from this button or press this arrow to bring up a panel that will list all the audio outputs available on your device. You can also access the advanced audio settings from this button. If the host decides to give you the floor, this notification will appear and you can decide whether to turn the microphone on immediately or keep it off and then turn it on later. In fact, as you may have noticed, now the words audio settings have been replaced by the classic button depicting the microphone that you can turn on and off as you wish. This arrow will open the panel seen previously, where this time you can choose the microphone to be used from those connected to your computer. To speak, click on the microphone or accept a further invitation from the panelists. You will notice by the change of icon that the microphone is now active. By opening the chat via this button, you will be able to send messages. You can also use this slot to decide whether you want to send messages to everyone or only to panelists and the host, for example, to ask them to take the floor. The senders and recipients of messages are always specified above each message. You can raise your hand to request to speak by clicking on this button. Clicking on the interpretation button, you will open the panel where you can select your listening language. We recommend that you always disable the original audio by clicking the Mute Original Audio button. Finally, you can leave the event by clicking on this button. Thank you for your attention.
Good morning, dear colleagues. The conference is organized by the UFM and MedWet as a result of a very close and dedicated actually collaboration launched already a few years ago. The conference has been actually intentionally placed between the first and the second part of COP15 on biodiversity after two crucial actually UFM ministerial declarations adopted in 2021, the first one on sustainable blue economy, held in February 2021, and the second one actually on environment and climate change, held a few weeks ago in Cairo, in Egypt. And of course, immediately after COP26 in Glasgow and before the coming COP, the Barcelona Convention in Turkey between the 7th and the 10th of December. Needless to say that, of course, I mean, we have also many other frameworks and appointments ahead. Obviously, the Ramsar COP in 2022 and the draft actually resolution on the protection, management and restoration of wetlands that is prepared along that event, together, of course, with the Green Deal and the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration. Of course, all these frameworks do now recognize fully the Mediterranean basin as a biodiversity hotspot, but also as one of the most vulnerable regions in the world to be impacted by global warming. So the sustainable management and restoration of natural ecosystems, and in particular of wetlands as effective nature-based solution, ensures actually carbon sequestration, biodiversity conservation, water resource management, disaster reduction, food security, and human well-being, with a particular reference, of course, to coastal community, local communities, but also to the overall political and economic stability of the region at large. You saw the concept note that we have actually distributed on the occasion of this event. And as a matter of fact, actually our wetlands have been actually destroyed by half over the past 50 years. So what we look for with this first actually conference is to build actually on the efforts which are being made, of course, support continuously these efforts with updated and sound scientific research and information. And of course, I mean, advance towards appropriate and relevant decision making in a better coordinated manner. So through our different, let's say, sessions, we will actually shed light on the main concept, the latest available knowledge, but also success stories and the most effective tools actually that we have to restore coastal wetlands. Highlight, as I said, the role of wetlands as the most cost-effective nature-based solution, boost better informed decision-making, but also explore ongoing and upcoming opportunities and financial instruments available from public and private organizations. So with no further ado, it's my greatest pleasure actually to give the floor to Patrick Weber. Patrick is the policy officer at International Relations of the European Commission at DG Environment, but also, of course, representative of the UFM EU co-presidencies for environmental matters. So Patrick, the floor is yours. We can't hear you, Patrick. Sorry.
Thanks very much. I hope you can hear me okay. And thank you very much for inviting me to give a couple of some brief words at the start of this very important event. And we're very happy to participate from the European Commission side. As Alessandra said, I work at DG Environment. So we're working specifically on the environmental policies, both within the EU and also in relation to our external relations, so with countries and regions outside of the EU, and specifically within DG Environment, I'm dealing exactly with those, with bilateral and regional relations in the Mediterranean region, what we call also the Southern Neighbourhood. And this meeting comes at an important time, as Alessandra's also mentioned. There was a ministerial meeting, a meeting at ministerial level on environment and climate change issues that took place in Cairo at the beginning of October in the context of the UFM. And the ministers there adopted a declaration which identified, amongst others, so common challenges within the region and also actions that needed to take it, and identifying also the biodiversity crisis that the region faces and the need to take concerted action there. I want to just give you a couple of brief comments this morning then about looking at the policy context within the EU and how the EU is looking, say, to engage on the issues externally as well. As Alessandra said, obviously the EU recognises that the Mediterranean is under significant pressure and the biodiversity in the Mediterranean is in a critical state as a result of climate change, unsustainable agriculture, soil degradation and pollution. And this has been identified by others, amongst others, by UNEP-MAP and also the work of the European Environment Agency in the region, specifically on the threat to biodiversity. And as Alessandra also mentioned, the EU recognises both climate change and biodiversity as two sides of the same coin. So we're not going to be able to address the climate change challenge unless we take steps to address biodiversity and vice versa. Now, at international level, as you may be aware, there are preparations underway for an ambitious global biodiversity framework to be agreed at the next COP of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity, which would be a sort of we expect and we hope would be a Paris-style agreement on biodiversity, committing countries to take concerted action to halt biodiversity loss, so with measurable goals and targets, as well as a strong mechanism for monitoring, reporting and reviewing implementation. And I'll come back to that. At EU level, we have what we refer to as a European Green Deal. And this really sets out the principles for our sustainable development. This has been identified by President von der Leyen. And it's intended to guide our economic recovery, building on a more inclusive and more resilient societies for the health and well-being of all our citizens. Now, a key element of the European Green Deal is the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, which sets out the EU's commitment to put nature at the centre of decision-making. So it includes targets on nature restoration and for protected areas. And it's intended to reflect the ambitions of the global biodiversity framework under the CBD, including the target for protecting 30% of land and sea, allowing also for broader area-based conservation measures. In the Mediterranean context, this 30% target would require an expansion of the current system of marine protected areas. Now, the transboundary nature of threats to biodiversity mean that coordinated action is needed, hence the importance of the ministerial meeting under the UFM last month, for measures to be effective, whether it's reducing pollution in the region or tackling invasive alien species. Now, specifically in relation to restoration, which I think is very relevant for the wetlands, for wetlands themselves, the EU is now working on a proposal for nature restoration law. And the proposal is that the law will aim to establish an overarching objective to ensure that by 2050, ecosystems in the EU will be restored. So to support reaching this objective, the law will establish a number of ecosystem-specific binding targets across a broad range of ecosystems, coupled with an effective implementation framework. The targets will address a broad range of ecosystems in the EU for the sake of their own health and for the sake of biodiversity. So this includes forests, peatlands, coastal wetlands, soils, rivers, and alluvial habitats, as well as essential marine habitats and other specific species-specific targets such as pollinators. So this is going to be very wide-reaching. We think it's wise to base ourselves on progressive introduction of targets that build on the agreed methods and reporting of existing legislation that can be launched more quickly. Others will need more time for development and to ensure legal certainty and the appropriate reflection of ecosystem characteristics. The proposal aims to allow the EU to act with urgency and start restoring ecosystems based on targets that can be measured and monitored already now. So as I said, also, this is intended to send us a clear signal in advance of CBD COP15 that we take that the EU takes action on biodiversity and specifically restoration, which will be important. The aim is also to pave the way for a broad range of ecosystems in the EU to be restored and maintained by 2050 with measurable results by 2030. My colleagues here and DG Environment are finalising this work and have started drafting the legal text itself. And we hope that the new law will act as a major enabler at EU level to contributing to halting biodiversity loss and bringing back nature to good health. And also, as I said, give the EU the necessary credibility to lead at international level in the context of CBD COP. So that's everything from my side. I'll pass the floor back to Alessandra. Thank you.
Many thanks, Patrick, actually for setting the framework and actually providing these very, very important hints. I now give the floor actually to the other UFM co-president, Mr. Abdellah Al-Tioud. Abdellah is the Director of Policy and Development at the Ministry of Environment of Jordan. And as you know, the UFM, we have two co-presidency, the EU and the South Jordan co-presidency, representing all the non-EU countries. So now, Abdellah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessandra. Good morning, everyone. You hear me?
We can hear you very well. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me for the important conference. It is an honor to be talking about this, the first conference in wetland restoration as natural-based solution in the Mediterranean. The COVID pandemic told us that natural must be heard and that integrating the local dimension is key to address environmental and climate change. Moreover, now more than ever, there is a need to act and implement solution based on natural itself to tackle these challenges. This is a great opportunity for the Mediterranean region to continue joint force toward a sustainable and inclusive economy while implementing effective natural-based solution. We hope to support the process by introducing you here today to the most efficient tools that restore wetland. The successful projects that will be presented confirm the key role of wetland restoration as natural-based solution to tackle environment and climate change. In visiting in the restoration of Mediterranean wetland can play a key role. It taking the dramatic consequences of climate change in the Mediterranean. Finally, I would like to mention that the process we initiate today directly contribute to the implementation of the UFM Ministerial Declaration on the Environment and Climate Action recently adopted by the 42 UFM Euromed countries in Cairo on the 4th of October, in particular to contribute to operational goals of the mentioned ministerial, namely the UFM 2030 Green Med Agenda and Implementation Plan. In particular, Axis 3, protecting, preserving, managing, and restoring natural resources in the Mediterranean region within an integrated ecosystem approach, including terrestrial, marine, and coastal dimension, while contributing the
Hello, Abdallah. There is a problem? Now we see you again. Sorry, you were about to finish.
Sorry about this. The Ramsar Convention and the Ramsar Convention, the COP15 of the biodiversity, and the most recently COP26, as many challenges as my colleagues will explain. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very successful conference. Thank you.
Many thanks, Abdallah and Patrick, actually, for setting the framework from the EU side. So on behalf of the 42 Euromed countries, it's now my greatest pleasure to give the floor actually to Miguel Améric Hugues Despoints, MedWet Presidency and also Biodiversity Director at MINECO. Mr. Hugues Despoints, the floor is yours.
Bonjour à tout le monde. Je suis très content d'avoir été invité à ce séminaire et je commencerai ces quelques mots en donnant mon remerciement à l'Union pour la Méditerranée, à MedWet et à Alessio, tout spécialement à Alessio pour le travail qu'il a entrepris pour ce séminaire. Et je remercie aussi le secrétariat de Ramsar, Tobias, d'être présent à ce séminaire. Et nous pensons que ce séminaire arrive à un moment spécial, étant donné que l'ONU a consacré cette décade à la restauration. Il est clair que la conservation de la nature d'un point de vue traditionnel n'est plus suffisante et nous devons passer maintenant à une seconde étape de restauration des écosystèmes qui ont été dégradés dans le passé, spécialement les zones humides qui sont peut-être un des écosystèmes qui a le plus souffert en Europe, au moins, et dans le bassin méditerranéen. Comme exemple, nos calculs sont que à peu près 60% des systèmes humides que nous avions en Espagne ont été dégradés ou ont disparu à la moitié du XXe siècle. Il s'agit maintenant de conserver ce qui nous reste, mais aussi de récupérer tout ce qui est possible de restaurer. Et cela, ce n'est pas important simplement pour la propre santé des écosystèmes humides, c'est aussi essentiel pour récupérer les services écosystémiques que ces écosystèmes peuvent nous donner. Et cela, encore plus important, avec un scénario de changement climatique où les systèmes humides, les zones humides peuvent avoir un rôle très important pour la solution basée avec des solutions de la nature pour lutter contre des phénomènes catastrophiques qui seront malheureusement plus fréquents dans l'avenir. Je crois que la mise à disposition des personnes qui assistent à ce séminaire des projets qui ont eu un succès dans plusieurs pays, dont un en Espagne, nous inspirera à tous pour mettre en place de nouveaux projets de restauration qui pourront récupérer des zones qui ont été abîmées ou dégradées dans le passé. Et cela est encore plus important, c'est pour cela que c'est encore plus important de connaître les possibilités de mobiliser des fonds. Et la seconde partie du séminaire va nous informer des possibilités de fonds qui ne sont pas de façon spécifique des fonds nationaux qui sont très souvent insuffisants pour mettre en œuvre ces projets à long terme. Et simplement ces quelques mots, vous remercier à tous de participer à cette réunion et j'espère qu'elle sera très profitable pour tous ceux qui peuvent maintenir la connexion cette matinée. Merci.
Many thanks for your words, very enlightening and actually already introducing, us towards the main topic actually of today. I will now conclude this opening with the welcome remarks from Mr. Salaté. Thank you very much actually for being with us as a senior advisor and coordinator at Ramsar. So Dr. Salaté, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having invited me to say a few words, and thanks to all the many of you of being at this meeting. I think that is a very important development that the Union for the Mediterranean has, first of all, their project on wetland-based solutions and works together with the Mediterranean Regional Initiative of the Convention on Wetlands, with MedWet, of who the President Miguel Aymarich has just told us a few words. I'm just coming back from Glasgow, probably the biggest environmental meeting this year. And despite of all what you have heard in the news, and there has never been so much civil society attention, it was really impressive how many people were in the streets every day in Glasgow, in other cities, etc. And obviously inside the compound, which was a little bit limited in terms of people it could accept due to the COVID, but it was never such a big motivation and mobilization of the civil society. And the good news is that despite all the negative news that we are not advancing sufficiently rapidly, is that in the Glasgow Climate Pact, the final declaration, there is a clear paragraph which says that the countries emphasize the importance of the protection, the conservation and the restoring of nature and ecosystems to achieve our climate goals, and by acting as carbon sinks and reservoirs of greenhouse gases, and to protect the biodiversity while ensuring social and environmental safeguards. This is about the text you can find in the Glasgow Climate Pact. That is new, and that shows that the shift on nature-based, on land use-based solution, which is clearly also coming up at that global level. And now moving to the Mediterranean, I'm really very worried when I'm reading your numbers, which you have put up front at the invitation on the program of that seminar we are having now, because on average, there are 6% of the land surface is covered by wetlands in the world, but in the Mediterranean, it's only 2%. and on average, a little bit more than 50%, half of the population is living in cities. In the Mediterranean, it's 2/3, and which are cramped in the coastal cities. So it is clear that the urgency is very high in the Mediterranean, as it has nearly been outlined in your introduction. And therefore, I'm again very happy to see that we are starting to create really potential and partnerships with the Union for the Mediterranean, with other similar organizations who can bring us into the debate and finding solutions, other sectors than those which are already involved. With this, I think I wish us all a very interesting morning seminar, and want to stop here and thank again the organizers, and among them obviously Alessio Satta, but all the other ones which have been involved as well. Thank you to all.
Dr. Salateh, many thanks for your words. Indeed, the figures are very scary, very worrying, and that's why there is a very clear understanding at Mediterranean level that we have to join forces. This is a process, of course, started already many years ago, but now, of course, it needs to ensure also harmonized, let's say, actions and, let's say, operations, so that, I mean, we can all achieve some results in this overall alarming scenario. So thank you very much for your words, and thank you very much to all. I'll now give the floor for the moderation to Alessio, and I leave you in his hands. Thank you very much, Alessio, for taking over the moderation.
Thank you very much, Alessandra. Thank you all for this introduction. I would really like to start with an emotional fact. Wetlands are disappearing 3 times faster than natural forests, 3 times faster. That is, you know, like scaring. And if you think that the loss of accumulated organic matter is releasing huge volumes of greenhouse gases into the air, around 5% of annual global greenhouse gas emissions come from draining peatlands, 5%. But wetlands, as we know, are not just carbon stores, are also water stores that are vital for protecting us from extreme events that are already ongoing. Our scope as MedWet is, of course, to ensure and support conservation, but also to promote the function and values of wetlands as ecosystem services, for example, for disaster risk reduction. And I would like immediately to introduce you, it's my pleasure to introduce you Maria Snoussi, which is former professor at the University of Rabat, but also ex-president of the French Research Development Institute. And Maria will give you a view on which are the climate change impacts that are affecting Mediterranean, with a focus on coastal zone. Please, Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessio. I will try to share my my screen. Oui, yes, je vais donner ma présentation en français, si vous permettez. Donc, merci Alessio, merci aux organisateurs de nous donner cette opportunité d'échanger sur cette thématique très importante et opportune, comme cela a été souligné, vu les agendas internationaux et les agendas méditerranéens. Pour commencer, justement, je voudrais rappeler quelques conclusions clés du 6e rapport du groupe 1 de travail du GIEC, qui statue que le changement climatique affecte déjà toutes les régions de la Terre de multiples manières, que la température de surface mondiale continuera d'augmenter jusqu'au milieu du siècle, au moins dans tous les scénarios d'émissions. Le réchauffement de 1,5 et 2 degrés sera dépassé au cours du 21e siècle, à moins bien sûr que des réductions importantes des émissions du CO2 et d'autres gaz à effet de serre ne se produisent dans les décennies à venir. Le rapport insiste également sur le fait qu'il n'y a pas de retour en arrière sur certains changements dans le système climatique. C'est ça qui est grave, mais néanmoins, certains changements pourraient être ralentis et d'autres pourraient être stoppés en limitant le réchauffement. Et pour limiter ce réchauffement, des réductions fortes, rapides et soutenues du CO2, du méthane et des autres gaz à effet de serre sont nécessaires. Pour ce qui est du contexte méditerranéen, le premier rapport d'évaluation du MEDEC, le Marouane, auquel j'ai eu l'opportunité de participer en tant qu'auteur, coordinateur lead author, qui a été publié en 2020, il a montré que le réchauffement n'est que l'un des nombreux facteurs de risque environnemental. C'est en effet la combinaison entre les risques non climatiques et les risques non climatiques comme la pollution, l'urbanisation, la surexploitation des ressources naturelles, et les risques climatiques, l'augmentation de la température, de l'élévation du niveau de la mer et la réduction des précipitations vont avoir des impacts combinés sur les écosystèmes, sur les ressources en eau, l'alimentation, les côtes et la santé humaine. Si vous voulez avoir plus de détails, bien sûr, vous pouvez trouver ce schéma et le rapport sur le site web du MEDEC. Le bassin méditerranéen, ça a été déjà dit et répété plusieurs fois, est considéré comme un hotspot du changement climatique. Ce schéma résume un peu les différents impacts du changement climatique sur le bassin méditerranéen. Et c'est dans le rapport sur l'état de l'environnement et du développement publié par le Plan Bleu en 2020 également. Et pourquoi on dit tout le temps que le bassin méditerranéen est un hotspot de changement climatique? Et bien justement, parce que son réchauffement est 20% supérieur à la moyenne mondiale. Elle se réchauffe beaucoup plus rapidement que la moyenne mondiale, avec un réchauffement plus important de la température de l'air, de la température de l'eau. C'est une région aussi où la pénurie d'eau est déjà une réalité. L'acidification induite par le CO2 menace davantage les écosystèmes marins. La région est également vulnérable aux impacts de l'élévation du niveau de la mer, avec cette particularité en Méditerranée où les établissements humains denses et les sites patrimoniaux sont situés très très près du rivage, et il y a une capacité d'adaptation qui est souvent très très limitée. En ce qui concerne les écosystèmes côtiers, particulièrement les impacts ou risques additionnels du changement climatique selon les deux scénarios RCP 2.6 et RCP 8.5 sont résumés sur cette figure d'après le rapport spécial sur l'océan et la cryosphère qui a été publié en 2019 et qui montre que, tous les écosystèmes côtiers qui sont énumérés ici connaîtront un risque très élevé à élevé sous le scénario RCP 8.5 à ce niveau-là. Ici, nous avons le RCP 8.5 et là, le RCP 2.6 avec la situation actuelle. Donc, on peut voir que sous le RCP 8.5, tous les écosystèmes auront des impacts additionnels dus au changement climatique très élevés à élevés. Les écosystèmes qui devraient présenter un risque très élevé dans ce scénario sont évidemment les récifs coralliens qui connaissent déjà à l'état actuel, qui sont déjà très affectés à l'état actuel. Il y a également les herbiers marins, les forêts de varech et les côtes rocheuses. Ces écosystèmes ont une capacité d'adaptation qui est faible à modérée, donc ils ne peuvent pas s'adapter au réchauffement climatique car ils sont très sensibles au réchauffement des océans, aux vagues de chaleur marine et aussi à l'acidification. Alors, vous imaginez bien qu'on avait dit que la Méditerranée, en 2040, aura une température de 2,2 degrés. Donc, on sera déjà là en 2040. Ça veut dire que les écosystèmes côtiers seront déjà avec des impacts et des risques additionnels qui sont très élevés à élever. Qu'en est-il des impacts du changement climatique sur les zones humides? Toujours d'après ce rapport spécial sur l'océan et la cryosphère, il statue que près de 50% de l'étendue naturelle pré-industrielle des zones humides côtières mondiales ont été perdues depuis le 19e siècle. Il y a aussi il faut dire que ce n'est pas que le changement climatique, il y a surtout les pressions humaines non climatiques sur les zones humides, comme la surpêche, l'eutrophisation et les espèces envahissantes, entre autres, qui interagissent avec les facteurs du changement climatique et affectent leur composition et leur structure, avec des impacts qui varient selon les régions et selon les espèces. À l'échelle mondiale, pour les projections à l'échelle mondiale, il est prévu qu'entre 20 et 90% des zones humides côtières devraient être perdues d'ici 2100, selon les différentes projections de l'élévation du niveau de la mer, jusqu'à 90%. Vous vous rendez compte, c'est un chiffre qui est effrayant. Il y a également, le rapport, il stipule qu'il y a des preuves substantielles qui soutiennent le fait que le réchauffement et la salinisation des zones humides causées par l'élévation du niveau de la mer vont provoquer des changements dans la répartition des espèces végétales vers l'intérieur des terres et vers les pôles. Pour ce qui est des zones humides méditerranéennes, nous aurons également une réduction des zones humides de 48% entre 1970 et 2013. La dégradation est principalement causée par les activités humaines telles que la construction de barrages et le drainage en particulier. Nous aurons également une réduction des débits des rivières de 25%, due à l'utilisation intensive de l'eau dans les bassins versants pour répondre à la demande croissante des besoins humains, qui vont certainement entraîner l'épuisement des eaux souterraines et l'intrusion d'eau de mer, et qui va être aggravée par l'élévation du niveau de la mer. Il y a également une réduction de la capacité de contrôle des inondations de 20%, en raison de la conversion des habitats naturels en zones agricoles et urbaines et du développement intense des activités humaines dans les zones inondables. Et en termes de biodiversité, les espèces des zones humides menacées d'extension vont atteindre les 36%. Ça, c'est ce qu'on constate actuellement. En matière de projection, nous aurons également les mêmes, si vous voulez, les mêmes réductions vont être aggravées par le réchauffement climatique. Nous aurons une érosion, un risque d'érosion qui va augmenter de 13%, une augmentation des épisodes de fortes pluies d'ici 2080 entre 10 et 20%, une augmentation du risque d'inondation en 2100 de 50%, une diminution des précipitations d'ici 2100 entre 15 et 30%. Alors, les zones humides, si elles sont préservées et en bonne santé, peuvent jouer un rôle important en tant que zone tampon face au changement climatique en régulant la grande variation des niveaux d'eau. Mais cela, si on leur laisse la place, si on les restaure, si on les préserve et qu'on laisse des corridors pour que les zones humides puissent migrer vers l'intérieur avec l'élévation du niveau de la mer. Et d'après le GIEC, il y a un risque élevé de perte locale totale dans le scénario d'émission RCP 8.5 d'ici 2100, en particulier si la migration vers les terres et l'apport de sédiments sont limités par la modification humaine des rivages et des débits fluviaux à cause des barrages. Et cela est illustré par ces deux figures en haut. Donc, pour conclure, il y a un besoin d'identifier des solutions locales, efficaces et durables pour répondre à l'urgence d'agir. On n'arrête pas de parler de l'urgence et donc pour cela, il faut identifier des solutions locales. Parce que les zones côtières, comme cela a été dit dans les speeches introductifs, les zones côtières méditerranéennes abritent désormais plus des 2/3 de la population du bassin et par conséquent, la résilience de ces populations, les économies locales, la stabilité économique, voire politique de toute la région sont en jeu. Et si rien n'est fait pour atténuer les impacts environnementaux et climatiques, les écosystèmes côtiers seront gravement touchés au cours des prochaines décennies avec des conséquences probables, notamment une sécurité humaine affaiblie, des problèmes de santé, des conflits sur des ressources naturelles qui vont engendrer une migration accrue et probablement un effondrement économique. Donc, il est plus que jamais urgent d'agir pour protéger ce capital naturel vital pour les écosystèmes, pour les services écosystémiques essentiels qu'ils fournissent, comme cela a été déjà dit, qui sont fournis pour les populations et pour la nature, tels que la séquestration du carbone, la conservation de la biodiversité, la gestion de l'eau, la réduction des risques de catastrophes qui sont de plus en plus fréquents et intenses, la sécurité alimentaire et humaine et bien sûr le bien-être des populations. Et je vous remercie. C'est tout pour moi. Merci Alessandra.
Thank you very much, Maria, for presenting the problem on one side, but also to start presenting the solution. Coastal wetland as a solution, a possible solution. Some pilot restoration projects are already underway in many Mediterranean areas. And this session, of course, is an opportunity to learn from different success stories across the Mediterranean. I now have the pleasure to introduce you Jean Jalbert, who is leading the Tour du Valais, one of the most important research centers on wetland and conservation and management, which is focusing very much its work in the role of wetlands as nature-based solutions. Please, Jean, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessio. Thank you all. I'm going to share my screen and to shift to French. Merci beaucoup pour cette invitation et pour tous ces propos introductifs qui ont très bien posé la scène et les enjeux. Pour ma part, je voudrais faire des remarques introductives sur ce concept de solution fondée sur la nature basée sur la restauration des zones humides. En quoi ces zones humides peuvent être des solutions effectives, efficaces. Pour rappeler tout d'abord que ces zones humides, comme ça a été dit, constituent l'écosystème le plus productif sur la Terre. 6% simplement de la surface de la planète, des continents, mais 25% de la production primaire, de la productivité primaire. Et cette production, cette productivité fait que ces zones humides sont l'écosystème qui contribue le plus au développement et à la subsistance de l'humanité, à travers, bien sûr, toute cette biodiversité, ces poissons, ces gibiers, ces matériaux qui sont autant de ressources pour les hommes, mais aussi à travers de nombreux services qui ont été trop souvent ignorés et qui deviennent critiques aujourd'hui à la faveur des changements climatiques, notamment tous ces services hydrologiques, la capacité de recharge des nappes phréatiques, la capacité de régulation des crues, la capacité à épurer les eaux. Et puis enfin des services culturels. Ces zones humides ont été de tout temps investies par les hommes pour ces ressources qu'elles procurent, mais aussi pour cet environnement extraordinaire, la beauté des lieux. Et donc, il y a une valeur culturelle importante et des valeurs écotouristiques ou d'éducation qui sont tout à fait importantes. Mais si ces zones humides sont l'écosystème qui contribue le plus au développement de l'humanité, dans le même temps, on s'aperçoit que c'est également l'écosystème le plus détruit, le plus dégradé sur la Terre. Et à chaque fois qu'une zone humide est dégradée, on voit que toutes ces fonctions, tous ces services rendus gratuitement à l'humanité sont perturbés. On voit une réduction de biodiversité, on voit à la fois des sécheresses plus fortes et des inondations plus catastrophiques, on voit une eutrophisation, c'est un peu la crise de foi des milieux naturels lorsqu'il y a trop d'éléments nutritifs, une pollution qui n'arrive plus à être enrayée et une perte des usages et du bien-être des hommes. Et comme ça a été dit, à l'échelle de la planète, on a perdu plus des 2/3 des zones humides depuis ce siècle-là, et comme le rappelait Tobias Salaté, ce taux de perte des zones humides, 1/3, 35% depuis 70, c'est 3 fois plus que la perte des forêts. Et on voit sur le petit graphe à droite que l'Europe en particulier, parmi toutes les régions du monde, est celle qui a la plus grande responsabilité là-dedans, qui a détruit le plus de zones humides sur toute la planète. Et vous voyez que ces services, alors, certes l'évaluation économique est toujours une discipline un peu difficile et discutable, mais en attendant, on voit qu'une évaluation de ces services fait que la perte de ces zones humides d'eau douce fait qu'à l'échelle de la planète, on perd, on a un coût de 2700 milliards de dollars par an. Les zones humides côtières et les mangroves, la perte de ces zones humides côtières et mangroves a un coût pour la société de 7200 milliards de dollars par an. Vous voyez que c'est tout à fait colossal. Comme ça a été dit, la Méditerranée, si on zoome maintenant à l'échelle du bassin méditerranéen, nous sommes sur un triple point chaud, un point chaud de la pression humaine. Nous sommes dans un berceau de la civilisation, mais avec une explosion démographique au cours du siècle dernier, une population qui a triplé, et puis un chiffre qui est peu connu, mais qui est assez critique et même terrifiant. La population méditerranéenne, c'est seulement 7% de la population mondiale, mais c'est 60% de la population mondiale qui souffre de déficit en eau. Un point chaud du changement climatique, et Maria Snoussi nous a fait une très brillante démonstration de tous ces éléments-là, je n'appuie pas là-dessus. Et puis un triple point chaud, donc point chaud de la biodiversité, avec une biodiversité qui a évolué au fil des millénaires, coévolué avec l'homme et avec sa présence dans ce bassin méditerranéen, avec énormément d'espèces endémiques, c'est-à-dire qu'on ne trouve que dans le bassin méditerranéen et nulle part ailleurs sur la planète, et donc pour lesquelles nous avons une responsabilité toute particulière, et en particulier un rôle critique des écosystèmes et des espèces liées aux zones humides et aux eaux douces. Et cette triple pression fait que en Méditerranée, les zones humides sont souvent perçues comme en fait des compétiteurs pour des ressources en eau qui sont rares et très convoitées. Et cela arrive à la conclusion que Maria Snoussi présentait à l'instant, c'est-à-dire que ces zones humides disparaissent encore plus vite que cette moyenne mondiale qui est, je dis, 3 fois plus vite que les forêts. Donc, près de la moitié des zones humides disparues depuis 1970. Cet prélèvement d'eau dans les rivières, dans les fleuves, fait que leur flux depuis 70 là également a considérablement réduit, leur débit a réduit entre 25 et 75%. Plus d'un tiers des espèces liées aux zones humides sont menacées d'extinction, et tout cela, bien sûr, a un impact fort sur les économies et sur le bien-être des nations du bassin méditerranéen. Et si on ajoute à ça les effets des catastrophes naturelles, dont on voit que l'effet du changement climatique, en fait, c'est d'étendre les extrêmes, et donc d'avoir des extrêmes à la fois en matière de sécheresse, en matière de pluviométrie. Et on voit qu'aujourd'hui, 90% des catastrophes naturelles qui arrivent sur notre planète sont liées à l'eau, soit des excès d'eau, soit des manques d'eau. Et que cette fréquence des catastrophes naturelles a doublé au cours des 30 dernières années. Et là encore, quelques chiffres. En Europe, on voit que le coût des inondations entre 2000 et 2012 a été de 5 milliards d'euros, et que ces coûts sont prévus d'être quadruplés d'ici 2050, du fait à la fois de l'augmentation des effets du changement climatique, mais aussi de l'augmentation de la présence de l'homme et de ses infrastructures un peu partout sur le territoire. Donc, on est dans une situation tout à fait critique. Alors, pour en arriver aux solutions fondées sur la nature, c'est un concept qui présente une opportunité tout à fait sans précédent pour augmenter cette résilience de la société méditerranéenne qui, on l'a vu, est tout à fait sous contrainte. On l'a vu, les défis sociétaux sont particulièrement importants en Méditerranée, du fait d'une part de la croissance démographique tout à fait importante, de cette pression incroyable sur les ressources en eau, de cette concentration, cette littéralisation, donc la concentration des activités et de l'urbanisation sur le littoral, et notamment c'est une mer qui a très peu de marais, et donc les constructions, les infrastructures se sont faites au plus près de l'eau. Et puis une agriculture tout à fait dépendante au climat. Et on s'aperçoit que ces écosystèmes méditerranéens qui sont en piteux état, mais qui sont encore fonctionnels, jouent aujourd'hui, sont encore en capacité de jouer un rôle clé pour répondre à ces défis sociétaux. Et on s'aperçoit que la gestion, la restauration de ces écosystèmes sont des solutions à la fois efficaces, peu chères, et qui peuvent être un moteur, qui peuvent permettre d'accélérer cette transition absolument nécessaire pour une économie inclusive, durable, verte et bleue dans le bassin méditerranéen. Donc c'est l'ambition de l'agenda Green Med, notamment de l'Union pour la Méditerranée. Juste pour décrire un tout petit peu plus ce concept de solution fondée sur la nature, c'est bien l'idée de trouver des solutions à la fois pour la société et pour la biodiversité. Et ça permet d'inverser la perspective. On s'aperçoit en fait que tous les problèmes qu'on vient de décrire sont liés en fait à une relation erronée avec la nature, qui considère la nature comme une contrainte au développement, comme un coût pour la société, ou comme une ressource dans laquelle puiser sans limite. Et on s'aperçoit que voilà, si on est capable d'inverser cette perspective et de considérer que cette nature, non pas comme une contrainte, mais comme une alliée puissante, efficace, peu chère, à notre service et accessible à tous. Et c'est bien ça l'idée de ce concept des solutions fondées sur la nature, pour répondre à un certain nombre de défis sociétaux qui sont listés dans ces petites icônes, à la fois le changement climatique, la réduction des catastrophes naturelles, un développement social-économique, la santé humaine, la sécurité alimentaire et l'approvisionnement en eau. Ce sont des défis absolument critiques en Méditerranée pour lesquels ces solutions fondées sur la nature, notamment par la restauration et la gestion de ces écosystèmes et des zones humides en particulier, doivent à la fois apporter des solutions aux défis sociétaux de manière effective et adaptable, et en même temps donc pour procurer du bien-être humain et des bénéfices pour la biodiversité. Et juste un petit schéma pour vous illustrer comment cela peut se traduire, ces solutions fondées sur la nature. Par exemple, si on s'intéresse à la prévention des risques d'inondation, on voit que la préservation des zones humides et la restauration des zones humides, à la fois dans tout le bassin versant, depuis les montagnes jusqu'au rivage des mers, sont une solution efficace. La restauration des forêts riveraines, des ripisylves le long des cours d'eau, le fait de pouvoir créer, insérer, réinsérer dans des villes, dans des urbanisations, des zones humides sont à la fois des solutions en termes de rafraîchissement de la température dans des îlots de chaleur urbains, mais aussi de pouvoir utiliser et épandre ces inondations qui peuvent arriver dans les milieux urbains, de même que différentes zones d'expansion des inondations le long des fleuves, et enfin le reméandrage des rivières, retrouver un cours naturel qui aura une dynamique plus forte et qui pourra recharger les nappes phréatiques. Tout ça, ce sont quelques exemples de solutions fondées sur la nature. Juste pour finir, un petit zoom sur une expérience en cours dans le delta du Rhône, au sud de la France, en Camargue, où en fait, vous voyez sur cette carte, c'est un delta qui a été fixé depuis un siècle et demi par des digues. Et vous voyez que ce petit trait ici, ça représente une digue de protection créée il y a 150 ans, une autre ici le long du rivage. Et malgré tout, malgré cet endiguement du delta, on voit qu'il bouge toujours, et notamment vous avez une érosion, toute cette zone qui sont ici en rouge, vous voyez qu'on a une érosion qui est de l'ordre de 10 à 15 mètres par an du rivage, et puis il y a des endroits où ces sédiments repris ici sont déposés dans ces zones en jaune, où on a une augmentation, une accrétion de l'ordre de 5 à 20 mètres par an. Donc, vous voyez qu'on est dans une zone très dynamique, et dans cette zone très dynamique, le sud-est de la Camargue, du delta du Rhône, était, jusqu'à des temps récents, un salin en activité, production de sel sur environ 14 000 hectares. Et face à cette érosion très forte qui mettait à mal la digue de protection de cette production salinière, il y a une dizaine d'années, 6 500 hectares de ces salins ont été vendus au Conservatoire du littoral, qui est un établissement public français qui est en charge de l'acquisition et la protection de zones littorales menacées. Cet écosystème-là, 6 500 hectares, c'est-à-dire une expérience tout à fait sur des dimensions inédites à l'échelle européenne, a permis de tester comment est-ce qu'on peut utiliser ces zones humides comme un amortisseur climatique en ayant une gestion adaptative à l'augmentation du niveau des mers à travers un retrait organisé dans les secteurs en érosion, et puis cette restauration écologique servant à la fois pour la biodiversité, mais aussi pour la protection des implantations humaines. Ça a permis, donc, vous voyez que il a été fait un choix, le choix d'une part d'abandonner la première digue de protection qui est ici illustrée en vert, hein, cette petite digue verte ici, qui était des enrochements qui sont en train de s'affaisser et avec des brèches qui s'occasionnent. Eh bien, il était jugé pas possible, pas raisonnable de tenir cette digue-là. Donc, il a été décidé de la laisser disparaître par elle-même lors des tempêtes, mais en revanche de renforcer la digue intérieure qui est située 4 ou 5 km en arrière littoral, cette digue ici en rouge, et puis de créer des circulations, de recréer des circulations entre la mer et les étangs intérieurs de la Camargue, qui étaient à la fois une reconnexion hydrologique, mais aussi biologique, puisqu'on s'aperçoit que de nombreux poissons, de nombreuses espèces retrouvent ce chemin-là. Et les résultats sont très encourageants, puisqu'on s'aperçoit que, effectivement, le fait de pouvoir, lors des tempêtes, laisser la mer rentrer dans ce vaste espace de 6 000 hectares permet une dissipation très efficace de l'énergie des vagues pendant les tempêtes. Et ça permet également de recréer un littoral sableux, un cordon sableux. Et vous voyez ici sur ces photos, cette photo ici correspond à cette digue dont vous voyez qu'elle était très malmenée, qu'elle s'enfonce et qu'elle ne jouait plus son rôle de défense contre la mer. Et ça, c'est le même endroit, pris quelques semaines après qu'une tempête soit passée par là. Et vous avez ici l'image satellitale où on voit cette digue qui est ici, avec juste un tout petit peu de sable, et derrière, ce sont les étangs, ici la mer et ici la lagune. Et bien, vous voyez qu'après une tempête, et bien, tout ça, toute cette portion ici, c'est du sable. Alors, on peut dire, c'est dommage, on a remplacé un très bel étang, une très belle lagune par un gros tas de sable, mais ce tas de sable, eh bien, en fait, c'est notre assurance vie, c'est nos défenses de demain, c'est ce sable qui va reconstituer des dunes qui seront ce lido sableux, qui seront ces défenses contre les tempêtes de demain. Maintenant, tout ça n'est pas aussi simple que ça, donc ça marche. On est très convaincu par à la fois l'apport en termes de bénéfices pour la protection des hommes, mais aussi pour la biodiversité. Il n'en reste pas moins qu'il y a de défis importants devant nous. Le premier, et peut-être le plus critique aujourd'hui, c'est l'acceptation sociale. Dans un espace comme un delta, comme la Camargue, où les hommes se sont battus depuis des siècles pour tenir et pour gagner sur la mer, de décider aujourd'hui de ne plus tenir et de laisser la mer rentrer est quelque chose qui est vécu de façon très douloureuse, comme un renoncement, comme une défaite. Et donc, il y a un vrai travail de communication, d'éducation, de pédagogie pour faire comprendre qu'on n'est pas dans une défaite, au contraire, nous ne sommes pas fatalistes, mais bien dans une approche raisonnable, importante, fondée, structurée, qui répond à des vrais enjeux et qui permet de voir l'avenir de façon plus durable. L'autre enjeu, c'est comment est-ce qu'on peut développer des activités socio-économiques dans un environnement aussi mouvant. On voit que chaque tempête remanie l'intégralité de cet espace-là. Et donc, il est pourtant nécessaire d'offrir une opportunité économique aux habitants de ce territoire. Donc voilà, ça, c'est les questions qu'on se pose aujourd'hui et qu'on serait ravis de débattre avec vous dans les heures qui viennent et même dans les mois et années qui viennent. Voilà, je vous remercie.
Et nous, on te remercie, Jean. Thank you very much. I think that the case of Camargue is just a very interesting case. And now it's time to have also a closer look to some incredible success stories in the rest of the Met. And we will start our journey in Tunisia with a video. Please play the video.
On est juste sur les terrains qu'on appelle Gataï ou bien Ramli. C'est des terrains qu'on peut les cultiver avec toutes les cultures maraîchères. Et on a sur la mer Méditerranée juste un canal. Ce canal-là qui permet le passage de l'eau pour la lagune qui était derrière nous. Il y a la filtration de l'eau qui se passe avec ces canaux. Quand le marée monte, la plante elle va absorber l'eau douce, puisque l'eau douce, la densité moins que l'eau salée. Si on va planter ici, impossible qu'elle va pousser, parce qu'ici, il y a de l'eau salée. Ici, il y a de l'eau douce. L'irrigation ici, c'est mieux que sur les terrains avec l'irrigation moderne ou bien l'irrigation avec les barrages et tout, parce que ici, ça s'infiltre directement. On n'a pas besoin de pensée d'argent, on n'a pas besoin d'une grande technologie pour l'irrigation. Donc pourquoi on va chercher à investir sur l'irrigation, puisqu'on a une irrigation naturelle, mais il faut la protéger. Il y a au village environ 5000 habitants, mais ce n'est pas tous qui cultivent la terre. Tu peux trouver 700 familles. C'est notre vie, on inspire de la terre, de la lagune, du lac et tout. Hein. Il ne faut pas le modifier. Ces dernières années, la différence, l'eau qui commence à diminuer, la pluviométrie, elle est beaucoup diminuée. C'est partout dans le monde. C'est pas... Surtout, on peut, comme l'année dernière, au mois d'octobre et au mois de novembre, on était inondé ici. À cause de quoi on était inondé? Parce que le canal, il est refermé par des gens qui veulent construire des restaurants et tout. Il faut laisser le canal ouvert. Ça, c'est à l'année, il doit être ouvert. La communication d'eau se passe convenablement. Il faut sauver nos terrains et garder nos terrains. Il ne faut pas les vendre. Il ne faut pas laisser des gens planter comme derrière moi, là, des constructions comme cela. C'est ça le grand problème. Il faut protéger ces champs, ce genre d'irrigation.
Thank you. This video is just one of the videos that we are preparing and on different success stories in the Mediterranean. But we are in this video, we are in Gar El Mela in Tunisia. So it's my pleasure to give the floor to Imen Rais. Imen is program manager at WWF North Africa, Tunisia office. And she's leading the freshwater conservation program and most of all the GEMWET project. Please, Imen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessio. Good morning, everyone. So I'll be presenting the case study of Ghar El Melh after the video that you saw now. Okay. So to present the site, this is the Ramsar site of Ghar El Melh Lagoon and the Delta of Majuda, which is located in the extreme northeast of Tunisia, at the downstream end of the lower valley of the Majuda River, which is a transboundary river between Algeria and Tunisia. The main lagoon of El Bhira in the middle is surrounded by 2 salt lakes and spans over 10,000 hectares. The salt lake of Sabkhati Al Maki that we were talking about in the video is where the restoration actions are happening. It's worth mentioning that this is a Ramsar site. It also has 2 KBAs, the KBA of Sidi Ali Maki and the KBA of Jbal al Nadur, the mountain that surrounds also the complex of lagoons. But as we saw earlier, this ecosystem is facing the dual effect of natural threats, coastal erosion, saltwater intrusion, and so on, and also uncontrolled coastal development, pollution, and dams construction in the upstream, which is affecting the lagoon. And as you were seeing, this is the Sabkhat Sidi Ali Maki, where we have the Gataya, which are the very traditional farming heritage that was brought by the Andalusian, and where the cultivation of the plants does not require any artificial irrigation, and even during periods of droughts. But this natural irrigation system is now disturbed by the anthropogenic activities that has greatly reduced the action of the tides for the irrigation system to function properly. Before talking about this study, I would like to mention that this project is happening now thanks to the MAVA Foundation and a number of partners in the Mediterranean region. And thus, this project is now working to put in place an integrated coastal zone management and wetlands management in the Mediterranean region, in the North African region, to restore, sustainably manage, and to develop, to sustainably develop activities around the wetland while conserving. And this is done by responding to societal challenges as defined by the NBS standards. And we have identified 4 societal challenges: food security, water security, socioeconomic development, and lastly, the conservation of the degraded ecosystem. And for that, we identified an urgent action to improve the water flow and the water quality in Sabkhat Sidi Ali al-Makki. As you were seeing, the farmer has explained that this is a natural irrigation system that is now threatened because of the dysfunctioning of the water exchanges. So what we did is that we started by doing the diagnosis of the current state of the area through analyzing land use, land cover, topography, geomorphology, the vulnerability of the habitats, and also socioeconomic analysis, because this wetland is supporting fisheries, farming, and also tourism activities that is concentrated in the summer. So there was a very thorough analysis and research done to identify the current status of the ecosystem. This comprehensive analysis also concentrated on the water balance, on the entry and exit, and defining the factors affecting the water exchange. We now presenting the new scenarios for water exchange to restore the water flow and allow the Gataya farming system to operate. We're doing this in a very, the process is long because it's not only to do the research, but also to have a participatory approach, to consult with central agencies responsible for marine public domain, but also to go into the field and to see what the farmers, the fishermen, and the other users of the site are thinking of this, because eventually this is going to be benefiting the ecosystem and also their economic activity. So now we are in the phase where we identify the different scenarios of where the water will be circulating. It's worth mentioning that this is not a normal restoration where you only have to find ways to provide water into the Sabkha, but it's going to be a restoration where you be careful about water exchange going in the right way, the right flow to provision water for the farming lands and then to go back. This water exchange was dysfunctioning now because of the building of the road, the building of the harbor, the building of the harbor. And we are at the phase now of presenting all the different scenarios and exchanging about the ideas that we are presenting and how the different actors and the different stakeholders are responding to that. We hope that eventually we will end up defining the scenario and a challenge for restoration in this area. To conclude, I would like to say that restoration is a long process. It requires adequate time and resources at the different stages, from the characterization of the site priorities, the identification of the main threats, the data compilation on biodiversity, on socioeconomic aspects, prioritization of the urgent actions with the relevant stakeholders, and then the planning of the restoration action and the costing. We are at the phase where we have the planning, we identified the costing, but this requires now a compromise between the different actors. And one of the most pressing challenges is how to find a balance between the restoration priority and the local community's needs for livelihood. So we always involve local communities, in our case, farmers, fishermen, and tourism service providers. And we would like to find a solution in full consultation with them to avoid any future dysfunction. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imen. Just to let you know that at the end of this session, we will have a couple of minutes for question and answers. So if you want if you have a question, please book it on the chat. Now we move from Gar el Mel in Tunisia to Albufeira in Spain. And I give the floor to Mr. Pablo Vera, who is collaborating with the Spanish Ornithological Society, but also currently coordinator of the Wetland Conservation Program of the municipality of Valencia. Please, Pablo, the floor is yours.
Hi, Alessio, and good morning to all. I'm very glad to join this webinar and to highlight the restoration activities that we have made in Albufera de Valencia for the last maybe decade. So I will start my presentation. Okay, can you see it properly? Okay, so first of all, I will present or introduce Albufera de Valencia. This is it's located in the east of Spain. It is the third most relevant wetland for biodiversity protection in Spain. And this wetland is characterized by having a shallow lagoon, a coastal lagoon, with surrounded with rice fields. This is an aerial image of the lagoon and the rice fields. I mean, I must highlight that the entire wetland is composed by these two environments as a natural wetland and an artificial wetland, which is the rice field, but very important also for aquatic biodiversity. So it is 21 hectares of surface, and 2/3 of the surface is composed by rice fields. As you see, well, it's also Ramsar site and Natura 2000 site. And in the regional regulation, it is a natural park. As you see in the image, the intensification of rice fields is very intense, and there are very few natural habitats surrounding the lagoon. So also in this image, you can see the second problem for biodiversity in Albufera, that the high load of nutrients in the waters. So habitat restoration in Albufera in this last decade has focused in solving, on trying to make possible a recovery, focusing complementary in these two problems, improving water quality and improving habitat availability for biodiversity. So one of the main reasons to start to recover these wetlands, well, the work consisted in all the cases in taking rice fields, buying them, and then having some restoration activities in them. And why is so relevant? Because if we take care on which species are in disfavorable conservation status in Albufera, talking about birds, you will see that mainly these birds that are strictly related with coastal lagoons are those, and of course on water quality, are those who are in a worse conservation situation. So this is the focus, to recover the habitat availability for them, and also water quality. There are two kind of strategies. The first one is the restoration of rice fields by constructed wetlands. We have 3 cases. The most biggest is that one, Tancat de la Pipa, that is in the north. And well, there were used more than 8 million euros for structural funds in 15 years ago to buy them. And I think that is very important to show the location, because they are in the surroundings of the lagoon or other complementary aquatic environments. So this strategy also focused to enlarge the habitat availability in the surrounding of the lagoon, and not to have it several wetlands isolated inside the rice field matrix. So in these constructed wetlands also the improvement of water quality is an objective. So the water is going through several green filters and then to the lagoon, and the water quality is improved. So also a very important point here in this strategy of constructed wetlands is to have permanent shallow waters in this kind of wetlands, because if we follow the rice field activity, the rice fields are dried for several months during the year, and especially during spring. So this is also a kind of biological stress for biodiversity in Albufera. So having these permanent waters has helped a lot to improve the use of endangered species. Also, in these 3 constructed wetlands, there are participative boards, as they are implicated the River Basin Authority, who is the entity who built and who drive the restoration activities. Also NGOs through land stewardship initiatives, also research entities, the regional government, the local municipality, and local communities. As my colleagues said before, this is very important point for restoration. Also, another strategy is to improve small wetlands. In this case, 2 properties for the regional government that were purchased in the beginning of the millennium, and this is embedded in bigger management unities for rice fields. So rice fields here in Albufera, they are organized by small communities irrigating several small rice fields. So in the constructed wetlands, the strategy was to build all the rice fields for the community, and in this case, in this small wetland, there is only a concrete rice field. So these restoration activities are focused on ecological functions, to have the vegetation filtering the water, and also promoting macroinvertebrate diversity and this kind of flooded meadow that is a very rare habitat in Albufera. It's also important that these small reserves have low maintenance cost, not as the previous one, that there are several maybe 15,000 euros of management every year. And also this is demonstrative experience for the farmers, because they are implementing several initiatives.
Pablo? Hello? I think we have lost Pablo connection. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So, sorry, Pablo. Thank you.
Like
Okay,
pumping the water through solar.
I think we miss it.
Sorry,
we miss you, Pablo, for 1 minute.
Okay, so
can you please come to conclusions? Thank you.
Okay. So the lessons we learned, first of all, is that we have to focus on complete rice fields community management. So because focusing on small rice fields is very complicated because of there are rising several conflicts with farmers, mainly with the water pumping. So we are managing a complete community is better. Also, the importance of having multi-parameter ecological monitoring, as we are knowing every minute or every day what is happening in the wetlands. So we can have frequent assessments of the success of the management measures developed, but also to identify what are the limitations to achieve conservation goals. So because as I said before at the beginning of the presentation, we are focusing on biodiversity, but also on improving water quality. Another problem is rising because we do that multi-parameter ecological monitoring. We realized that restoring very few reserves, we were driving to have several ecological traps. That is a problem rising because we had very few habitat availability. So in the moment we recover good habitats and good ecological status, the biodiversity is coming with a lot of pressure on that habitats. For example, waterfall eating all the macrophytes and creating good habitats for several species, but also for the predators. So it's very important to work not only on small reserves or big reserves, but creating a huge network to reduce these dense dependent interactions. And to have the planning on that network, not only on concrete reserves, but on the whole network. Also for public use, because it's not appropriate to have lots of people in every reserve. So several reserves are dedicated to public use, but others are strictly reserves. And very important, the governance models, as I said before, involving third parties or research entities, NGO.
Thank you, Pablo. I think we need to to close it because there are still some
the local
lack of connection.
Success.
Sorry, Pablo. I think we need to close, but there's still some lack of connection.
Okay.
If you want to say that.
No, I'm sorry. That
okay.
was the last slide, but the most important thing is on the slide. So.
Thank you very much, Pablo. And now we fly from Albufeira to Sardinia and to introduce Miss Vania Statsu, which is a Deputy President of the METSI Foundation and Technical Coordinator of the Maristanis project. Please, Vania, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessio. Thank you to everybody. I will present today the Maristanis project, that is a project supported by MAVA Foundation. Okay, yes. Maristanis includes 6 Ramsar sites on the western coast of Sardinia. Today we will focus on a part of the southern Ramsar site, and especially on the lagoon of Marcedì, which is characterized by salt water, and the neighboring pond of San Giovanni, which is characterized by salt water. In this area, climate and human impact generate several issues. Climate impact refers to sea level rise, coastal erosion, storm surges, heat waves, and also excess of precipitation, of lack for several months of precipitation. Human impacts created by the anthropic activities are mainly water and soil pollution, saltwater intrusion, inefficient irrigation, and lack of management. In the Maristanis project, several activities are addressing these issues. In this area, as told before, the mixture of climate and human induced pressure will create a different impact, such as inundated assets, loss of habitat, poor water quality, and mainly poor wetland hydrodynamic. In this area, nature-based solutions turn out to be a reliable way to address the societal challenges created by this problem, such as climate change adaptation and mitigation, disaster risk reduction, ecosystem degradation and biodiversity loss, and water security. In our restoration project, we will try to find a priority solution to be adopted to solve these problems. And we identify these three main solutions: the mitigation of the flood hazard, the reduction of the loss of habitat and species, and the restocking of fish species. The expected results coming from these solutions are to obtain a better water quality, to secure lives and local assets, and to preserve the existing good quality biodiversity, but also to restore integrity of biodiversity in ecosystems that are now endangered, and to improve the productivity of the fish and mollusk stocks in the lagoon. Of course, a general element that will be introduced in the governance of the area will be the sustainable management, that is like a hat that will cover all the specific elements introduced to better manage and to solve the problems. The restoration activity that we are promoting in this area is a complex system that is concern a smart, mainly smart opening of the two barriers created by some dikes that are in this part of the lagoon and also in this part. These dikes was created in the past decades, and they have some gates and grids that unfortunately are not easily opening during storm surges and inland floods. It is creating in the past several problems. The smart opening system that will adopt will be able people that is managing the lagoon to easily and quickly open this gauge and to create a good flow of water in and out the lagoon. The system is complex because it also includes several sensors. The most important is the tide gauge located in the small harbor close to the village of Marcedì, that will be able to early warn about a dangerous sea level rise, for example, caused by some surges. In this case, after the tide gauge will provide the early alarm, we will be able to open these gates and let seawater to flow into the lagoon. The other sensor systems introduced in the lagoon will be able to monitor water quality. And so if the level of salinity, for example, of the lagoon will become too high, we will be able to quickly open the gates that are located in this part of the wetland, and to let the fresh water from the pond of San Giovanni to slow entry into the Marcedin Lagoon to rebalance the salt level in the area in order to avoid negative effects on the increase of salt water on the mollusk and other fishes. This system will work also in the opposite sense. So when the excessive rainfalls flow through canals and rivers into the pond of San Giovanni, we'll be able to open the gate to let fresh water to flow into the lagoon. Again, the sensor system will let us to monitor the water quality, and in case of a low level of salinity, we'll be able to also open these gates and let fresh water to flow into the seawater, or vice versa, to let seawater to flow into the lagoon to rebalance salinity. This system will be also supported by a restoration of habitats in the northern riparian area of the wetland, but also in canals and rivers. This led us to valorize the bioremediation ecosystem services provided by native vegetation. And last but not least, the system also led the empowerment of local fishermen as real guardians of the lagoon, because the local fishermen will be provided by ecological boats equipped with monitoring systems. So they will act as the first people that could be aware of unbalanced situation in the lagoon, and be able to immediately act to preserve their assets, the historical and ecological heritage that this lagoon provides to us, and also to preserve the fish stock from the negative effects due to climate change or other issues. I hope to be in the time. Thank you to everybody for attending.
Thank you very much, Vania. And before completing our journey, our Mediterranean journey, please consider that we will have a couple of minutes for questions for our panelists, so you can book your questions through the chat of Zoom. So now from Sardinia, we move to Turkey, and I'm happy to introduce Mr. Serif Isli. Serif is a wetland expert working at the General Directorate of Nature Conservation and National Parks of Turkey, and is also national focal point for the Ramsar Convention. Please, Serif, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessia. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Okay, thank you. Thanks to inviting me. I just go to my presentation. Yes. I also like to say a few words about our case study in Turkey, Akgöl Wetland. Sorry.
Can you put the full presentation, Serif?
Yeah, I'm just trying it.
But... Just in the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, I will talk about Akgöl Wetland in Turkey. Actually, it is not a coastal wetland. It is actually a floodplain wetland. It is at the center of Turkey in Konya province, but unfortunately, it was dried between 1970s and 1980s for agriculture. Before drought, it was about 2,000 hectares, and due to the low groundwater in the area, burning began to appear in the soil. Why we choose this area for restoration is actually 10 years ago we had a climate change project, and the project was consists of two parts. One part is mitigation, adaptation to climate change, and the second part is the mitigation for climate change. And we need a pilot project area for mitigation part of the project, and we choose that wetland because it was a completely degraded wetland. It was an area with the sufficient size for a pilot project area in terms of cost and benefit. Also, it was near to Ankara for logistics, implementation, and monitoring activities because we had a limited time and limited budget. Also, it was an area with high potential as a percentage of success. So we choose that area for restoration. Also at the bottom, you see a picture of Akgöl at 1950s before degradation. Well, what was the success of case? Where you say, actually the most important part is the choosing the correct area for the project, because in restoration projects, we understand that budget and restoration capability of the area is the most important thing. If you don't have enough budget or the area is not capable of restoration, so you cannot be successful at the project. Also, during the restoration, due to the lack of water, it was impossible to restore entire area, full area. So for this reason, we aimed to build a wetland that can hold water in the largest way in terms of surface area. So our aim is not to restore all the wetlands because it was impossible. So our aim was only to, as much as possible, the biggest area to restore. To achieve this aim, actually we worked different scenarios, but no other solution could be found other than construction of a dike. And at the bottom, you see also the burning of land before restoration at the wetland. When we come to the restoration activities, as I said before, we have built a dike with a natural construction material. We tried to use natural construction material mostly instead of cement because our aim is that not to build a dam or not to keep the water at the upstream of the dike. So our aim is only to make the flow of water to more slowly, to make its flow to slower. So except spillway, it was a engineering activity. No cement had been used in the dike. Also, drainage canals had been filled to prevent escape of water. Also, we built two artificial islands to provide new breeding habitats for the birds. So our restoration activities was those. You see some pictures from the restoration procedure, and you see the dike with natural dike, and before restoration, it is the photo of before restoration, actually construction of the dike you see, and after the construction and restoration of the area, you see that I think we succeed at the first year very well. And also you can see at the picture that after the dike, the downstream of the river was also green. So that was what we need and what we aimed at. Also, we just want to make the flow of the water more slowly. Also, another picture of the area after restoration. So when we come to the lessons learned, what we have learned from this restoration, that actually restoration is not finished when you completed the restoration activities with them, because after restoration you must need more care to area for also for more budget for monitoring activities and conservation activities. So when you finish the restoration, it doesn't mean that you finish your job actually. The second is, after the restoration is completed, you should be taken the additional measures to protect the area. For example, in this area, we need restrictions should be placed on the use of underground water wells around the area. And the final lesson is actually, when you provide the right conditions, we see that nature can renew itself very quickly. We see this renew capacity in only 1 year. Actually, it is the good thing, I think, in our project. So after 1 year, we see that biodiversity has increased in a short time in the monitored area. For example, before restoration, only 23 bird species was observed in the site, but after 1 year, it increased up to 53, for example. Also, breeding bird species were observed, especially in artificial islands. So it was a good project for us. Maybe it can be used for the other degraded wetlands, but they have to have similar conditions to be successful. So that's all I want to say. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you, Seri, for this successful and replicable, as you mentioned, project in Turkey. We have now a couple of minutes for questions, even if I don't see questions in the chat. So we can maybe move forward to the next session. But let me say that we have finally realized that solutions exist. They are already in the ground. They are already implemented in many areas in the Mediterranean. Of course, they need to be implemented within the good policy framework on one side, and on the other side, of course, with sufficient resources. What we need, of course, is a multi-actor and multi-level approach that is a key to address these challenges. Now we saw a discussion bringing together actors from institutions that are providing opportunities for wetland restoration, financial instruments, and of course that are open for public and private organizations. We call this session opportunities for wetlands restoration in the Mediterranean. And this morning we will start with Francesca Marcato. Francesca is a project officer at the Joint Secretariat of the Interreg GMED program. And I have two questions for you, Francesca. The first question is, if we look at the current and past call for proposal of the Interreg GMED, how do you think that how relevant was marine and coastal wetland restoration and conservation in the project that the program has financed, and which are, if there are, of course, already lessons learned from these projects?
Thank you, Alessio. I will share the presentation. Thank you also for the invitation. I'm really glad to be here with you. The InterAgMed program in the last 4 years has founded mainly a project on focus on wetlands and restoration under the priority on biodiversity protection. And the main 2 projects that we have financed, the relevant ones are the Wetland project, that is now a closed project, that with its actions has involved 9 pilot sites, mainly 9 wetlands, and the Tuna project that is an ongoing project that is more focused on marine and coastal areas, but has capitalized the results of Wetland project and is involved in working in 10 pilot sites. These 2 projects have the main outcome was the methodology. The methodology that they have tested and applied in these projects, that is based on the environmental contracts, so governance, solutions and tools for a sustainable management of natural resources. With this project, the project has first of all, apply an assessment of the pilot sites. So they have really worked on the ground and provide the knowledge on the environmental status of these pilot sites, following also a collection of data on the socioeconomic context. And then they have also assessed the regulatory framework that in some cases there was an evidence on the lack on the institutional framework. And they have also provided a stakeholders mapping. So a mapping of all the stakeholders involved and concerned that have an interest, mainly economic interest in these natural resources. This project I provided, based on these assessments, they have started. In some cases, they have supported a process, a governance process that were already ongoing. In other cases, were started at the beginning of, so they have pushed for the beginning of this type of governance process. It's a long process that has tried to increase the trust engagement of all the stakeholders involved through these bottom-up approaches. This methodology is the main results of this project that the program has financed, and at the same time can be transferred if there is a clear assessment of the pilot sites in which we want to test and apply this type of environmental contracts. It was clearly an improvement of the knowledge on the environmental status of this area, but also sharing of knowledge, because in some cases, or not all the stakeholders were aware about the environmental status of the wetlands. And in some cases, this methodology have also arisen to an agreement among the different stakeholders involved, and with the definition of priorities, actions, and try to also identify some financial investments. So, but the main difficulties was really the adoption of this agreement, of course, and the integration of these agreements in the territorial strategies. So this is just to present you the main results that we had until now through the InterAgMed funds addressed to the wetlands and more the restoration of this type of areas. If we talk about the future.
Yeah, that's a question that we all want to ask you, is how actually the next program of MED program, the new MED program, will address the issue of wetland restoration and conservation.
Yeah, for the future, so the new Euromed program that we start with there will be a kickoff the 2 December in Lisbon. The program will be more focused not only on marine environment as we had until now, but we will open on also terrestrial ecosystems. So there will be more a focus on land and sea dimensions and attention on land-sea interaction. And we will, of course, the main aim of the program will be the contribution to a more climate neutral society, and mainly actions supporting the restoration of mainly having a focus the wetlands will be financed under the mission 2 of the next new program. We have already identified in our cooperation program some actions going in this direction. I can mention you some actions that are just the continuity of the results that we have until now. So we will continue to promote ecosystem-based and co-management approaches. We continue to promote results going on towards the governance models, mainly local governance models, but also supporting nature-based solution to prevent risk and mitigate effects mainly caused by climate change. And also we continue to support the activities that will be very important for us, awareness raising towards public authorities. So the actions will be, there will be this, let's say, terrestrial and marine dimensions really crucial and important for us in the next programming period. So if the attention until now was addressed to mainly marine environments, we will go through another type of wide vision. And of course, what will be continued also, it's the cooperation and coordination with other initiatives and programs that are working in the Mediterranean area. And we will open more and more also the possibility to participate, the participation of countries coming from south, anyway, countries coming from outside the MED area, so the eligibility area of the program. Last information, we will open the call for proposal addressing these topics, anyway, the thematic call for proposal next year in the second semester of next year. So that's all.
I believe that is an excellent news for all of us because it seems that you are really addressing the good points, the points that we are discussing today. So thank you very much, Francesca. Of course, invite you all to find some updates on the program in the websites of the Interact Med program.
Yes.
And now from the Interact Med, we come to the NEC-BC Med. And I'm happy to introduce you Vincent Ernoux, which is coordinator at the NEC-BC Med program for the Western Mediterranean. And also, of course, Vincent, I have a question for you. And the question is, of course, referring to the call for projects that are already closed and the projects that are ongoing, and how wetlands and also water management was addressed by the program.
Thank you very much, Alessio. I'm happy to be with you today. Thank you very much for inviting us. I was listening, well, I've been listening during the last hour and was quite impressed by the experts that you have. Of course, I'm a generalist, so I don't have these type of expert field and skills to bring. Indeed, our office is 10 minutes distance by car from Pablo, which talked before, in Albufera. So I recommended you this place. It's very nice and it's very close to our office, so that the day you go there, you can also pass by our branch office. We'll be happy to see you. Of course, we don't have so many projects dealing with that topic directly, especially if we compare with the MED program, because they had, and maybe they will still have, but at least they had a priority on environmental protection. We had no specific priority on this, but still we can find some projects that have more or less direct or indirect relation with wetlands. I'm sure that the one that you may know and the one that is clearly more linked is called MED-ACTSAL. It's not a project that was focusing on the protection of environment. It is a project focusing on competitiveness of the small and artisanal salinas of the Mediterranean. And the main objective is to make them more competitive, more resilient, and to be able to compete with the big companies in the field. But still, the project has a leg on environment, and all the work has also to integrate an environmental strategy. So especially with a focus on the impact on spaces. So this is well considered by the project. And besides this project, which is one of our best projects running from 2 years now, and very interesting results yet, we have several projects dealing with water. So it's especially water efficiency, sometimes from the point of view of new technology. So it's a bit far away, but still there is a relation, because of course, when you reduce energy efficiency, you reduce also the pressure that you are doing on sometimes on wetlands. So I think there is a clear relation there. And then we have other projects on the integrated management of coastal zones. We have one, for example, led by a Jordanian partner with the intention to build a Mediterranean forum for an applied ecosystem approach. It's still going on, and we have recently approved a project, a capitalization project called NSERES, also dedicated to integrated coastal zone management, and that includes some of the MED projects in the area, and also one initiative funded by the Union for the Mediterranean. So it's already including some of the projects in the topic. It's not dealing only with wetlands, of course, but it's still considering the fact. So that's more or less the picture that we have now.
Yeah, well, Vincent, thank you very much. I mean, also thank you very much for reminding us how water management and water efficiency are very much related. We saw today with some of the presentation. Of course, sustainable water management is a key for preserving wetlands in the Mediterranean and elsewhere. But Vincent, of course, I have also the question for you. The question that everybody wants to ask is about how the next MED program is addressing, of course, our topic, that is wetland restoration, wetland conservation, and how do you think this topic, of course, could be also included as a strategic topic in the next calls for projects?
Thank you, Alessio. Well, it will be there. It will not be there explicitly like it was not in the previous program, in the current program, mainly because the participating countries have to be very well focused because we have a limited budget and we have a very vast cooperation area. So they are choosing a very limited number of strategic topics. So it will not be one of them, at least not explicitly. But there will be plenty of room to, especially for those of you who have a lot of imagination, and I know that you have, to find the right place to get some, to find this place to get some space where you can fund and you can develop your ideas. For example, I'm giving some thoughts on the question. We will be we will have three big strategic and political objectives. The first one will be to build a more competitive and more digital Mediterranean. So there it may seem a bit far away, but still we could imagine projects dealing with developing new technologies related with the field, or strengthening the cluster of companies or institutions dealing or involved in wetlands. It's an option. I know it's not the easiest one, but still it's possible. We have seen it now with MedArtsal, the project with Salinas. Then we will have the second strategic objective, which is building a greener Mediterranean. There we will still have, of course, we can never forget it, water efficiency. It will still be there, still room for it. And then we will have a new topic never addressed in our program, which will be the prevention of catastrophes and consequences of climate change. I think there you need less imagination, but still you can present something. Then we will have also, well, the third strategic objective is a more social Mediterranean. There it might be a bit more difficult to find something, but then we'll still have the specific Interreg objective on governance. So to improve the governance of cooperation. So this is very open, and there I think there will be place for almost every field. So I think we have to be optimistic also for this field. What are we now? We are going to have just tomorrow our 6th task force, which is the committee building the new program. And we are, no surprise, we are behind our friends from the Med program. So they are already planning launching calls for next year. We're not there. We'll be arriving a bit later, but that's good for you, for the people listening today that are already anticipating their proposals. I think it's good because you will have first the opportunity in the Med program, and then a few semesters, maybe a semester later, you will have the option to submit your proposal to our program. So I think it's good. Anyway, both programs are now fully synergetic, and we are working together. And that's what you know, that in our program you will now have, most probably, it's not confirmed 100%, but we will have the Mediterranean regions of Turkey, as well as the Mediterranean regions of Algeria.
Yeah.
In comparison with what we have today. There is nothing confirmed because the program is not approved, of course. But what I've said today is more or less going to be probably approved, let's say. If you have any questions, please, I'm fully available.
Thank you very much, Vincent. And also for you, for the NECBC Med program, I invite all the attendees, to all the participants, to look for updates in the website of the program. Now we switch to Diego Intrigliolo for PRIMA. Diego is co-chair of the PRIMA Scientific Advisory Committee and senior researcher at the Spanish National Research Council. PRIMA mission addresses, of course, crucial issues for wetland conservation as water scarcity and the role of agriculture for efficient agriculture. How research, Diego, how research innovation in these sectors are contributing to improve the governance of Mediterranean water resources, and how you see the role of wetlands in this?
Well, thanks a lot, Alessio. Thanks for inviting the PRIMA program in this very interesting webinar. As you said, just to introduce very quickly, PRIMA is a research and innovation program that is financing projects in the Mediterranean, both the north and south shores of the Mediterranean. And the PRIMA Foundation is actually based in Barcelona, in Spain. And we have been financing projects for the last 3-4 years. And going to your question, our program is mainly focused on 3 main thematic areas: water management, where of course wetlands are an important part of it, the farming systems, which are very important indeed, because I would like to recall that in the Mediterranean, most of the fresh water is actually used by the farming system, by agriculture. So directly or indirectly, the management of water in the farming system is having a big impact in the wetlands indeed, because about 70% of all the water used is actually consumed by agriculture. And having said that, we mostly, so far, we've been financing projects dealing with water management, as my colleague Vincent was also saying. So dealing with water use efficiency tools and technologies, particularly like irrigation. In this sense, I would like to take advantage to say that it's not the same water use efficiency and water savings. And this is very important for the wetlands. Because indeed, at the end, if we want to improve the amount of water available or the water flow in wetlands, we need to look for strategies to obtain net water savings. So basically, it's to reduce the amount of water that is used by the crops when we are focused on agriculture. And this is possible. For instance, we are doing that in some of our projects, like the Prethimet project, with some technologies that reduce the soil evaporation, or for instance, in other projects where researchers, innovators, farmers all together are working, for instance, in selecting crops which have, because of their genetic background, a more efficient use of water, and indeed they use less water to produce the same. And this is very important, because if we are able to obtain some water savings in agriculture, hopefully without reducing yield, that means that we will have more water available for the remaining users, and the wetlands are one of them. So that's basically how we are dealing with this in more an integrated water management context. On the other side, we also have some projects like the MedWet that are dealing directly with the wetlands, but more on aspects related on their utility on their possibility of using wetlands for purifying water. And so it could be either natural or even constructed wetlands for purifying water, and that water then is reused either in agriculture or in the food industry. So far we have had more this focus, but for the future, and I will finish, basically every year we, starting from now, at the scientific committee, we have some meetings where we look at the new at the possibilities for new calls or interesting topics. And I can say that for the new calls, we are going to have more effort. And we're going to have some specific attention on the wetland restorations in the Mediterranean, particularly in terms of the quantity of the water, but also in terms of the quality of that water, which is also an important aspect for the Mediterranean wetlands. So that's all from my side. I will be happy to answer any question from the audience. Thanks.
Thank you, Diego. Just a quick question. Do you think, of course, now, I guess you mentioned this meeting, internal meeting. You think also that a nature-based, wetlands nature-based solution, as we presented today, under this climate change framework, could be also one of the priority of PRIMA in the coming years?
Yes, they will indeed. They will be also in the short term. We want to focus more on this, but they will also be probably in the long term, or in the mid, in the long term. Now there is a process, a dialogue on establishing some priorities by the UPM and the European Commission for the future, some hot topics that could find some spots, for instance, in Horizon Europe or in the new program. And within these priorities, already envision the aspects of biodiversity in relation to climate change and the role that wetlands can have on this have been already identified as a priority. So I expect that in the midterm, this will gain even more significance.
Thank you very much, Diego. Also
Welcome.
take this opportunity to invite participants to make questions. And again, you can make questions to our panelists, just writing down the question in the chat of Zoom. Last but not least, Mr. Luis Costa, Program Manager of the MAVA Foundation. Some of the projects, I would say many of the projects we saw today were funded by MAVA. And my question for you, Luis, is we know MAVA Foundation was created in 1994 to support biodiversity conservation in not only the Mediterranean, but I would say in the rest of the world. And unfortunately for all of us, of course, in 2022, MAVA will end its grant-making activity. But after more than 25 years, say 28 years of activity, as one of the most engaged donors in wetland conservation restoration, which are, can you mention some of the key success of MAVA on this, on restoring wetlands in the Mediterranean?
Well, sure, Alessio, and good morning. Greetings to all the participants, and thank you for the invitation for this conference. Glad to be here. I think that part of the good answer to your question was already provided by yourself, saying the number of projects that were presented here with our support. So by looking into the list of participants in this conference and the number of case studies and projects involved, this already illustrates a bit the success of many projects and partners and organizations in the Mediterranean region for delivering on protection and restoration of wetlands. But I guess you want me to elaborate a bit more. So let me put this in a perspective of the past, present, and future of our activity. Very briefly, of course, I could take hours for this. But as you know, probably MAVA Foundation was founded by Luke Hoffman, who even before '94 had already a big commitment to conserve wetlands in all the Mediterranean region and elsewhere, especially West Africa as well. This commitment was translated through the protection of what we called in MAVA iconic sites. So Doñana, for example, or Camargue in southern France that was already referred here, or Prespa Lake in Greece, or even in Western Africa, the Bijagos Islands or the Banc d'Arguin in Mauritania. These are places that really were at the heart of Luke Hoffman for its protection. And I think that we can give proper credit to him that good protection and legal protection of these sites, as well as support to Ramsar Convention and MedWet, was key for many of the things we see today. So talking now about the present, we are facing now we are very close to our end. We will close as a foundation. And at present, we have developed the last strategy. And at Mediterranean level, this last strategy was prepared by inviting all the traditional partners of MAVA, all the organizations with whom we have been working during all these years to prepare this strategy. So basically, we developed outcome action plans for the Mediterranean region. Two of them are specifically related to wetlands, very explicitly. So one for protecting coastal wetlands in the region, another one for ensuring the good use of water in the river basins. But other action plans are also related to the values of wetlands, like, for example, protecting endangered species of birds, or ensuring the sustainability of fisheries in the Mediterranean Sea, or sustaining cultural practices that favor nature conservation. So altogether, the organizations that were developing this last strategy identified water abstraction and sustainable coastal development as the key threats that should be worked on during this last period from 2016 to 2022, next year when we close. But this has been a very active strategy, and we established these partnerships with all these organizations with whom we are really proud and grateful to support. And it's amazing to find so many organizations that share and are committed to work towards the conservation of wetlands in the region. So this has been evolving during all these 60 years of activity. And for example, the active partnership of this outcome action plan, some of you are here in this conference, identified that further to water abstraction and a coastal development, also climate change plays a big role, and nature-based solutions should be also focus of attention for delivering. So what we are doing at this stage is a very complicated balance of doing two things at the same time. And I'm already referring to the future after what we are doing in the present. So at the same time, with the current funding, we are trying to deliver as much as possible on conservation, on restoration of wetlands. And this involves a number of strategies like supporting research, supporting sharing of experiences of different organizations, working towards communication and policy for protecting wetlands, supporting management and restoration. So it's a full set of strategies that are involved here in this present. But at the same time, and looking ahead, when MAVA closes, of course, we want to ensure some legacy on this. And for this, what is really important is that we can help supporting and developing a strong partnership that will continue to work together, and also to bring other donors to these efforts to continue working after MAVA ceases. So as an answer to you, yes, a lot has been achieved through all the partners, all the projects and initiatives that have been developed during all these years. But what we are really looking forward is for this future, that all the support that we have been given all these years can pay off after this period. So I think that the three pillars of our success can be delivering on conservation whilst we are here, building and helping, supporting this strong partnership that can work together after MAVA ceases, and bringing other donors and other initiatives to support this work. So I think this will be the three pillars for working together towards wetland conservation.
Thank you very much, Luis. I can confirm, and I really like to point out that creating this community of organization and people committed for wetland conservation is one of the greatest success of MAVA, and Medwet is part of this community and a very proud part of this community, I would add. So we are finally coming to an end. I just take a question that from Jean Jalbert. It is actually asking, of course, we add here some programs with similar but complementary scopes like Interact Med, NECBC Med, Prima. And so, and sometime, of course, within the Medwet world, and in which we work as a platform for 27 countries, and we need to have opportunities for EU countries and no EU countries working together. I think that some of the answers were already provided by Vincent and also Francesca, but yeah, after MAVA will close its doors in 2022, we will need more and more opportunities to continue this work. So maybe on this multilateral cooperation, I guess Vincent and Francesca would like to add something.
Francesca, I leave you the honor.
Okay. Thank you. In fact, as I mentioned before, mainly in the future, of course, first of all, we are cooperating more and more with other programs, European programs, but also other initiatives, of course, Union for Mediterranean, but also WestMed and other key initiatives that are working in the Mediterranean area. And the fact that we are working together with other programs, these allow also our partners to address their results and their, to open also their opportunities to other type of funds. So this is one point. The other point is that it's true that the Interreg program is working only in the north shore of Mediterranean area. But now, thanks also to this type of cooperation and synergy with other initiatives, we will allow mainly more in the future to partners that are coming from no EU countries to participate as associated partners, and their cost will be eligible in terms of, for example, if they want to participate in some activities, travel accommodation costs are eligible. So in this sense, we will try to push more their involvement in the project, even if they are not directly active partners.
Thank you, Francesca. And also I was forgetting Diego, sorry, Diego, of course, also Prima can facilitate this cooperation.
I would just add to Francesca's words that, you know, synergies have always been good words, but they used to stay good words, but now, and during the last period that we have achieved some real results on this, both the MED program, also ourselves. In fact, next week, we are going to launch our 16 new capitalization projects that already include concrete results of the MED program, of Prima and other initiatives. So it's a real and concrete synergy between us, and we are aware of this. We're still improving, of course.
I take the chance to invite my colleague and friend Alessandra to join this session and to prepare for the final remarks. Alessandra, please. I see we have another question. Maybe you want to take it?
Thank you very much, Alessio, and thank you very much all. Actually, I would like to add and follow, you know, on the words of the colleagues that indeed one of our, let's say, purpose over the past years has been indeed to recompose the Mediterranean picture around one region. As a matter of fact, indeed, financial flows, intentionally or not, do create sometimes some divisions. So it has been an intense dialogue actually with all the partners, I mean, and with all the speakers to have, you know, on the background, very close exchanges in order to enhance coordination. So as it was said indeed by Interreg Med, CBC, Prima, now and follow actually on the wishes of also MAVA of seeing this partnership build in the future. I think we are all very well positioned at the moment to start a very different, you know, approach, a new phase where indeed there is a lot of convergence and all, let's say, the mechanism and modalities, financial modalities also, to have a north and south, you know, working together in very close, let's say, relations are being basically activated. So again, this is just a start. We will have more and more opportunities, but from now on, also with the new, of course, very powerful programming at European level, the 22-27 on all fronts, we see a big, let's say, shift in terms of strategic partnership, which of course, I mean, is to address this very delicate historical phase. So this is really to reinforce all the messages. And I see also, you know, that there is a question, another question on how to involve the private sector.
Yeah, I think that Diego also this is yeah, about the involvement of the private sector. I think that Diego wants also to give a reply to this.
Yeah, if I might, yeah, of course, yeah, Prima is financing also non-EU countries already. So that's to answer the other previous question. And how to involve the private sector. I see examples at some companies that they use water, for instance, in their process, industrial processes. They want to offset their water footprints, and they are already investing in restoration projects. For instance, in restoring wetlands, or or for improving the status of water bodies, and in their sustainability plans, they can be involved on this. For instance, this is an example. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that Alessandra, what do you think? That we had a fantastic session.
Yeah.
Few questions. Why? Because we were the speakers and the panelists were over the top, so we're very clear, precise, and full of the right information. And so I think that we can, you know, wrap up and start with the final remarks. You want me to start? Maybe
Please,
I draft some few conclusions, so I will read them, of course, to simplify. But of course, we will share with you in also with the participants. We keep some updates, and we will share all this material. So the Mediterranean basin as a whole is at the front line of the climate crisis in terms of impact. It is a climate change hotspot. We saw it today more than ever after the last IPCC report and the COP26, and it urgently requires that all stakeholders join forces and proceed to action to implement local innovative solutions based on nature to reverse trends. So the question is, can we reverse trends? The sustainable management or restoration of natural ecosystems, and in particular wetlands, are now internationally recognized as effective nature-based solutions to tackle climate change and biodiversity loss. We are already at work through the Wetland-Based Solution Project and many other projects, and significant efforts are being made on the ground in the Mediterranean basin to conserve and restore wetlands, and in particular coastal wetlands, demonstrating the effectiveness of nature-based solutions. However, we need to go faster, and I think we all agree we need to accelerate this effort. These initiatives must be supported by updated and sound scientific research, and also supported by appropriate and relevant and better informed decision-making at the national, regional, local, and of course, international level. And I think, Alessandra, I conclude my part, and I let you to present your final remarks.
Many thanks, Alessio. As we said, it has been very enlightening. You have been already, you know, focusing on the nature-based aspects, of course, and on the international, you know, settings, which, as I mentioned just a few minutes before, are all converging around nature-based solution, which of course wetland is one of the first, you know, opportunity to exploit. I mentioned already, you know, at the beginning, all the important, you know, international, regional events. I reiterate that we are gonna build on what we discussed also today in view of the Ramsar COP, and the idea is actually to plan to meet on an annual basis with a conference like this to advance together and show, let's say, the progress made. You referred also to COP26, the capacity where, you know, there was one issue, an important issue, which is now connected to the last session that we had on finance, where the capacities for many of the poorest Mediterranean countries actually to adapt to climate change and respond to droughts, floods, and sea level rise is still, as well as other challenges, has to be discussed in more detail. And we, as UFM, will be looking very closely at the climate finance aspects. I'd like also to remind that the COP27 will take place actually in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh. So again, it's a very good opportunity for all of us, you know, to be fully prepared for that event on all, you know, the different side, the financial, the governance projects, and the showcase actually the achievements done. I think another very important aspect that was mentioned was, of course, the multi-level, which we all tried to promote. But also the multi-stakeholders, and in relation even to the last question, referring actually to the private sector, I'd like to add that we are in very close contact actually with the IFIs as well. You know that with the recent communication on the renewed partnership with the Southern Neighborhood launch also by the Commission, there is a very important investment package that is to made available, is to take shape, and IFIs are closely actually coordinating and working on it to establish these funds, and also dedicated funds to the Mediterranean with a focus on ecosystem restoration are under preparation. So with this last word, and with the thanking you very much for the participation and the very precious inputs that we received today, we look forward actually to meet you again next year for a second conference dedicated to wetlands, and to ensure that this community becomes larger and larger, following also the best wishes that Mava has sent us. And thank you also for all your support over the years.
Alessandra, I think that our final remarks were so inspiring that we have two people raising their hands. We have Afef Butuba, Abdalati El Sowayeb. So I don't know if we want to conclude with this. What do you think? We can give them, we still have time.
Absolutely, please.
So please, Afef, if you are there. Afef, I don't, maybe he needs to write down the question, or otherwise I can pass to Abd Alati El Sowayeb.
I think she needs to be upgraded to be able to talk.
Yeah, exactly. Or otherwise you can write down your question in the chat and we can read it for you.
Afef is a panelist now.
Okay. Please. Afef. Is there anybody out there? Okay. And Abdalati, can you hear us? I think he's trying. You can to switch on the microphone. Abdalati, I see. Yeah. Okay, we try hardly, but we are not succeeding. So I don't know what's wrong, but anyway,
I would suggest that probably it's a problem of upgrading from
from being
participants to panelists, but we remain available. This is, as I said, an ongoing process. So please feel free to get back to us. We will also be able to reply to more questions, and actually the community will be keeping, on communicating and exchanging on these matters to answer together.
Okay, so thank you very much again to everybody, and see you next year for the second edition of the conference. Bye bye.
Thank you very much, Alessia.
Merci beaucoup.
Sorry, Alessandra, and everybody.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. All the best wishes for the continuation.